Hello again. This is Lawrence Temple, your host, and this is From There to Here. We have today a very special guest, someone I respect personally and professionally. This is Dr. Nicole Bramwell, and she's going to talk to us, just as all of our guests do, about her journey, path, different things. I don't like to pre-plan or pre-say too much, but just know, of course, she's a doctor, so she will be talking medical things and other things. All right. So, Dr. Bramwell, hello.
Hi, how are you?
Like I told you, the one question that I always ask, I ask, what would be your elevator speech? And for those people who don't know the term, pretend you just stepped on an elevator. There's somebody there. You're only going to be on there for a few seconds. So, they ask you, who are you? What are you about? Or whatever. How would you boil down your essence, unfair as that is, in just a few seconds? What would you say?
Well, I would say I'm Dr. Nicole Bramwell, and I'm a health and wellness expert and consultant and encourager, helping women to find their best authentic self in body, mind, and spirit.
Now, well, a word that jumped out in the midst of that was encourager. Uh, could you talk about that, the role or the power of encouragement in your world or just in the world, period?
Well, so in the world, it may not be seen as that, right? So, but it may be called several other things. But I have realized that that's what I've been all my life is an encourager. And so I'm just claiming the term. I am claiming the title now
Hmm.
and embracing that as a power. That's actually my superpower. So I believe that's my superpower. I am able to encourage people, and it's not just hype. It's true. I am empathic. So I feel very deeply for people in general, whether they be termed bad people or good people. I feel so. I don't even watch the news because it's turmoil for me if I watch the news.
Okay, I see that.
So I feel that that's what I do. That is my, through being a doctor. So yeah, being a doctor was my dream, and I still think that it is my purpose. It is part of my purpose, but I think my purpose through being a medical doctor is actually to be an encourager. Um, so I found my way to that through being a doctor.
No, this is right on target. Because I was just thinking about a few things before we talked, and one of the things I was going to ask you was, and a lot of the guests, how closely does your life now resemble what you imagined or dreamed about back when you were in the high school or whatever? And I was just thinking, a lot of people, they're doing what was in them back then, but it's a different form than maybe they would have thought. So, but I want to answer for you. So, how similarly does your life now look
Uh-huh.
to what you imagined? If I'm asking that.
Okay. So, I wanted to be a medical doctor since I was 8 years old. So I was still living in New York at that time. And so I was born in New York and we moved to Florida when I was about 10 or 11. I can't remember which one. But I always saw where they had a lot of doctors that had their offices in their homes, like Heathcliff Huxtable, right? So that was actually very common that you would see the home and then you would see the doctor shingle. So I actually always envisioned myself from when I started wanting to be a doctor as having my own practice.
Okay. Okay.
So now I actually have my own, business. And so it's kind of strange how it came around to that. You speak things and you think things, you envision things, and they do come true, but it may not look how you thought it was going to look at all.
I get it. When I graduated mainly in high school, I wanted to major in TV productions and I wanted to be a producer on the Today Show and all that. And although I changed majors and stuff, even right now I'm doing something kind of similar to that.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but the path has been curvy, bumpy, valleys, mountains. Um, things that seemed insurmountable, things that were painful, but at the same time, so much growth, um, so much faith building over time, in through all of those experiences, and never, although being sad at times, being disappointed, feeling discouraged, but never reaching the point where I felt like I had no hope. Like I've never felt that. I talk about it with my sister all the time. I think that that is a superpower that my mom gave us, that to be resilient no matter what is going on, but that resilience is through faith in God. That's the anchor. That's the anchor.
How about so I guess you don't go into this, but maybe you have failed or whatever. When people talk about, their faith, they feel like the faith is going to keep them from having problems. So now when they have a problem, they say, if God was for me, then why would I have this
Uh,
problem? How
right.
how did you or your mom or whatever stay out of that pit of thinking?
Well, the Bible's very clear on that, isn't it? It's
Okay,
very clear. It
right.
says when we go through, right? So that when my mom was always before her time, as well, definitely out of the box type mom. We moved to Florida because my sister at age let's see, at age 6 and me at age 9, my mom sat us down and she said, we can move now and move to Long Island, or we can move in a year and move to Florida. And we said Florida, and we moved to Florida.
Wow.
So my mom was very much about including us. Unfortunately, my father did not participate in that. My father left, and was out and about. And so it was the three of us. We were a team, and my mom treated us as such. We were part of the team, and we had equal say in things, unless, there were very few things that she felt that she needed to veto. So, but she had veto power nevertheless.
Okay.
But in order to be a single mom, that's what she felt she needed to do in order to, provide for us, be able to have very hard conversations with us. Many Christmases we got a little small box. We got like something, maybe a pair of socks or something to open. And then we got a little small box with a very neatly written note in it, I owe you. And so after Christmas, when my mom got her third check for December, or, right at the beginning of January, then we would go shopping in Altamont at Altamont Spring Mall.
Wow.
Or Macy's when we were in New York. So I just think that her way of dealing with things, yes, she ran into extreme difficulty. She never fit into where the United Way would help. She never fit into where we could get food stamps, even though we needed it badly. I can remember writing to Samsula, to a friend of hers that lived in, and see how your eyebrows go up. That was my sister and I sitting in the back of the car as dusk is coming, knowing what our friends say at school and knowing the history of Samsula, Florida,
Yeah.
writing to her friend because her friend lived on a farm and my mom was going to get food so that she could feed us.
Okay.
Okay, so
Okay.
that type of tenacity and resilience, just doing whatever you need to do, but still able to smile, still able to have a good time, still an amazing sense of humor, and just immense amount of love, not just for us, but anybody that knew her. She gave love to, she gave counsel to until literally her dying days. Her dying days, she was still counseling people, still praying for people. And I mean, that's just powerful. She left everything here.
Okay.
And,
Oh, I love it.
so
I love that. He left everything
she
here.
did.
Goodness.
She did. She did. And so I have a lot to, like, why would I give up? She never did. And she had way more reason probably to give up than I ever have.
Now, for most of these episodes on the little what's that thumbnail cover page of it, I have the person's name and the title of the show and all that. And I always have a phrase taken from the conversation, like the subtitle. I think I'm going to take, why would I give up? I like that. I think I'm going to take that as a tagline for this episode. Well, this is connected, I'm sure, to your mom and other things. I remember when I first met you in high school. You were like a senior, I was a sophomore, I think, in the band, and you were an officer and all that. And if I had to say a word for how you came across to me, just meeting you back in those days, confident. I mean, we were kids, teenagers, whatever. But this is from the outside. Who knows what's going
Yeah.
on between the ears, whatever. But confidence is what you exuded then, and even now. Were you that confident in high school, or was that just what it seemed like to folks on the outside?
No, I feel that I was. I mean, I had the moments where I felt like, oh, I wish I could fit into this group or that group, but I think I was very much able to identify my tribe, and I was cool with who my tribe was. Because even though you see that group, I would see that group and say, oh, so and so is in that, and they seem like they're the cool people. And then I would really think about it and look at, I was mature, I think, for my age,
Mm-hmm.
again, because of my life experience, being that team with my mom and my sister and being the eldest sister, um, being very protective. And so I think that I carried that confidence. My mom reassured, like, never felt that we were less than anything, that we had every reason to be proud. We had every reason to hold our heads up. Always told me, you're tall, you're beautiful, stand up straight. I know you see the other ones scrunching over, but you don't need to fit into that. Stand up straight, straighten. And that's what people see, and they're intimidated by that. I realized that.
Yeah.
And I've become more aware of that actually as I got older, because I realized that it still was very imposing to people. So you become, I don't want to say I softened, but I became diplomatic to be able to not to cower myself in front of those people, but just to blend a little bit more, and then until they could see, oh, this is who this person is, because that's their insecurity, not mine. um but now, I mean, I think that lasted for a while I was in corporate,
Mm-hmm.
healthcare. I think I've actually shed that. I really don't care
Yeah.
if if somebody feels that way. So
Well, when I taught at a high school, my co-teacher and I were sponsors of a club, and our president was a real tall girl, confident, going to be president one day, I'm sure. And we used to
mm,
mention that to her. We could see her because she's
yes.
tall, physically, bending over a little bit so as not to
Mhm.
tower over the boys or whatever. And I remember
Right.
we talked to her about that don't bend yourself down, because it was like symbolic of dumbing yourself down, dimming your
It
light,
is.
all that kind of stuff, particularly for a physically
Mm.
tall girl and one who was an achiever too.
Right. And it just shows you that things like that actually then start to internalize. It can internalize and affect you. So here it is, you're doing that. I even noticed, and I think it was just trying to accommodate the picture and the selfies and what have you, but I had started to notice that when I was taking pictures with people, I was kind of like doing that side bend. And I said, I'm looking shorter than I am. I'm not going to. And I even brought it to my sister's attention because I saw that she had done it. And I think it's just because usually the person is shorter than us. So you're doing that, trying to accommodate the picture. And I said, you know what? No, I'm actually gonna be very aware of that and straighten myself up, no matter how short the person is that I'm taking the picture with.
Oh, that's really powerful. No, there's a bunch of life lessons in these simple things that you talk, these
Yeah.
daily mundane things, so to speak, that you're talking about. All this truth in there. Um, well, here's a question I normally save to the end, but I want to throw it in now. I always make this hypothetical situation where you have a friend and they have a son or daughter in high school, about to leave high school, and they're smart. They've always done the right things in school, but they're not quite sure what to do with their lives, and they want you to take them out to dinner, talk to them. But let me
Mm-hmm.
tweak that question a little bit and say, this is a young person, very talented, doing great things, but they have a problem with, I guess, what we call self-esteem, a problem with speaking up, won't look people in the eye, that kind of thing, male or female.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
they're your friend's kid, and they say, hey, I want you to take them out to dinner, talk to them. How would you see yourself talking to them or encouraging them or coaching them up in that regard? It's like how they kind of shrink around others.
Mm-hmm.
What would you, what's the,
Um, so I have done this, and I love mentoring and I love talking to young people. You know, remember I was a pediatrician in a previous life.
okay, that's right, I forgot.
And I don't believe the hype about, you know, you can't talk to the teenagers, they don't want to listen, they don't tell you the truth. No, actually they do. It's the parents that are tricky. Um, yes. So I would actually have an open conversation, you know, but not necessarily go straight for the jugular on that. I would talk with them about, you know, kind of see where their headspace is, and then use their own language to kind of speak back to them, mirror back to them what I heard and what would, you know, oh, this is your field, this is what you do. You know, if you did this, you know, that would be more powerful in your field. So attach it to something that they're already attached to. And then also recommend reading. You know, I know it's something that people don't want to do anymore. Reading is like, read a book, whatever. Okay, then listen to it. It doesn't matter that you get the substance from it is what's important. So I actually recommend to young folks and even anybody that I talk to that I feel that I'm giving some coaching or advice to, I'm like, have you read this book? Books that are powerful to me, that have meant a lot to me, that I think is pertinent to that person. Because although I have my favorite books, it may not be what that person needs then, and I'll probably tell them about that book later, but I'm going to tell them about a book that's going to help them where they are.
Get that. Um, Let me change gears here for just a moment. So, a lot of the people I've talked to on the show are artists. Um, and so I would ask them how they balance, I guess, the two sides of their brain, their creativeness with the
Mhm.
business aspect of them selling their work or whatever. So I would
Sure.
ask the same thing of you because you're in the medical field, you're a doctor, but then that's of course a business too. Does it feel like
Yes, it
two
is.
different, right? Of course. So does that feel like two parts of you being pulled in different directions, or does it feel like it's all one? How does that work in your brain?
So it it actually developed over time. So I think I was good with money when I was younger, just because we had to. I started working at age 12. I saved my money. I was able to pay for my own telephone because my mom got tired of me taking up the phone, and so she said I could have my own phone. We had a line put in there, and I paid every month for my own phone. I worked a catering service from when I was 12. And so I'm sorry, tell me the question again. I started
How
on
do you
that and I
balance
turned it.
the
Oh,
artist
yes.
part of your
So
brain and the business part?
yeah. So at first I thought, and I think I just took that from other people. Oh, I don't like business. Oh, I don't like economics, blah, 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 you know, because it gets melded in with politics and what have you. But as I went through medical school and residency, I realized how important it was for doctors to adopt business, the business of medicine, because first of all, it's treated so differently from just regular business, right? They don't treat it like a real business. Half of the stuff that you do in real business, they don't allow you to, or they don't do it in healthcare. And that's part of the reason probably why the system is messed up. But anyway, which it is. So as I went along, I actually went and got my MBA because I said, I want to know what the business is like. I started adopting that and how important it was for the residents that were coming through to learn how to code properly so that they could get paid for what the work that they did, not overpaid, but paid for the work that they did. But what doctors tended to do was down code because they didn't want to get audited. So out of fear of being audited, they were not doing what they should do to get paid properly. And then you can't turn around and complain that you're not getting paid from the insurance company because you didn't do what you were supposed to.
Okay.
And it wasn't hard. It's not hard. It's just a skill to learn. So I actually adopted that, started introducing some financial things, had some financial speakers come when I was chief resident at Arnold Palmer. I had them come and talk to the residents. I started talking to the attendings about their personal, I started getting buy-in, basically, is what I was working on. I was getting buy-in. And then I left after my chief resident year and had left that. Nobody took that up. Nobody took it up. Well, when I returned as an attending, again, I picked that up and I actually started a business of medicine elective for the residents, for them to come through to do things like a business plan, take them to conferences that they had no idea that were occurring, women in business and different things that were just occurring just in the community. And they had no idea of this whole other world. And so I think it's just exposure, just like anything else. If you're not exposed, you're fearful of it, you stay away from it. But the way that I used to do my presentations to the residents is I would show them, okay, this is how you want to code, right, for this particular problem. And then I show them a slide of a wedding and how much the wedding cost. So I started tying their life to their livelihood, to what reality was.
Okay.
How are you going to pay for your wedding if you're not getting paid at your job? And even if you're an employee, if you're not coding properly, then how are you valuable to that practice?
I see, because you can't show what you're worth.
So then why would I pay you more when you're not making the practice any money? It's a business, right? So just doing all of that, I just became more tied to business. I've always wanted my own business. As I said, I knew I was going to have my own practice, but I thought it was going to be it is actually part of the house. Look at this. I'm working from home. So yeah, so it's a part of life. I think that there were hurdles that I needed to overcome because my mom lived from paycheck to paycheck. You carry those things with you.
Okay.
And then I wouldn't ask people for the money that they should pay me when I started this business.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So online and technology has allowed that to be less of an issue for me, because now I just send it to them and say, so I take my emotional part of seeing my mom trying to pay for something, because that's basically what it boiled down to,
Okay.
and not having the money for it, and take that out of it and realize my value that I'm bringing to that person. And people pay for whatever they want. So if you want me, then you have to pay me, right? Just like you pay for anything else, like your nails getting done, your hair getting done. People pay much money for those things, but you don't want to pay for your health. I'm not sure I get the connection. So, or the lack thereof. So that's what, that's kind of been my growth through the business and the connection of it.
I see. Okay. And you destroyed a few myths here, because to the world outside who are not doctors and stuff, all doctors are filthy rich. You're just swimming in money. You just throw money in the garbage and
Yeah.
just pour it on you all the time. And you don't have to worry about all the minutiae you were just talking about, because you just swim in money and just throw it away. That's what the world thinks when we think doctor.
I know.
Right? So thank you for
Yep.
on that. Right.
Yeah, lots of myths floating around about that, for sure. For sure.
You mentioned how you mentoring is important to you and some of the things you just did. I know my Dr. Bramwell story is, I hadn't seen you for some years after high school, and then my son had an asthma attack, and I was at the hospital where you were, and didn't even know you were a doctor or anything. And through that, you came and spoke at my high school where I was a teacher, and I will never forget the impact that one visit made, that you couldn't know because you had to leave, but you and another doctor came, spoke to them, and kids were just so impacted by that. Partially, they hadn't seen female doctors, they hadn't seen African American female doctors, and all the students in there, whether they were of color or not, they were impacted just knowing you existed before you all even spoke. And then you spoke and just took it to another level. So I got to watch, even in a half-hour presentation at lunch, how representation, hearing images, all of that, how powerful that is. So I want to say again, thank you for that, because we still don't know the impact you had that day. Go on.
No, that should go on. Absolutely. And I'm glad about that. I do wish that I knew more of the impact that I have when I speak to people, but I do know that people remember how you make them feel, and they do remember things that were important to them at the time. Yeah. So
100%. And well, you know, I had a follow-up question with that, but then you just said something that triggered something else. When you talk about empathy, feeling, feeling what other people are feeling, and that kind of is that common for doctors to have that? Because some of us think of doctors as being scientists and
right.
fact-based and not strong on the human part. So
Hmm.
the empathetic approach you have, is that common in
Yeah,
doctors?
I think it's actually more common than doctors want to admit. So I think that in trying to create where people didn't become so personally involved with their patients that they couldn't provide good care because their emotions were involved, I think that we pushed doctors thinking the opposite, that we couldn't feel at all. And I think that when you do that, you actually create a big disconnect between patients, clients, just people in general. And doctors are saddened by that because they do feel they come away and have those conversations, but they don't necessarily have those conversations with their patients. I think that that's going away some, especially in fields like surgery. They were very well known for being harsh, and they know what they're doing, so it's okay for them to be rude, kind of thing. But that was their environment. We're all influenced by our environment, right? So if I want to be a surgeon and the surgeons are acting that way, then I go through residency and I go through training and I become like the other surgeons that I'm trained under, right? So that's all environment. That's not because those people started out that way. That's not even the reason why they became a doctor,
Okay.
right?
Okay. That makes sense. Are you who are some of the people that modeled, besides your mom, of course, that were those people that helped shape you as a young person or as a student or whatever, that were
Mm-hmm.
mentors for you?
Let's see, mentors for me, my mom. I definitely have to put her out there. Um, oh my gosh, I would say a teacher, like a fifth grade teacher. That was my last teacher that I had in New York, who thought I was super smart and wanted to skip me and different things, but just was a very positive influence for me. Very reassuring, probably at a time where my confidence wasn't where it was by the time I got to Florida. But
Okay.
um, just because I was actually shy, I was quiet. I did my work, excelled and what have you in school. But that was in a different environment too. But so I think so is Mr. Biggins. I still remember his name from fifth grade.
Wow. Yeah.
I think that that's pretty powerful. And let's see. Um, I have had a choir mistress. Um, uh, oh my gosh, Miss Shirley Bing. She was
Oh,
actually.
oh,
Do you know? You knew
I
her?
know super
Yes,
well. Yes. Wow.
yes. So she used to come and pick us up to take us to choir rehearsal. With her as a choir mistress at Stewart Memorial.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yes, so she was a mentor. Great lady, and knew her. My mom and her, they ended up being really good friends and stuff. And she actually ended up moving around the corner from us at one time. And so, just a big influence in my life. Let's see.
Wow.
I think Mr. Robinson from band. Just here it was, an African American in charge of this band that was allowed to travel out of the state.
Yeah.
That's that was huge, especially then. It's even huge now. And so I just what somebody is able to accomplish being who they are, because he was definitely just down to earth. I mean, he wasn't anybody but who he was, right? What
Yep.
you see is what you get. So but great influence. Um trying to think. Um of other people. I mean, there are a lot of people that influenced me. When I went to school at Howard in DC, they're a husband and wife. The wife actually is a good friend of my aunt, my mom's sister, but the husband didn't know me. And just how they took me in as their own. I was 17 years old. They didn't treat me like a child, but they didn't pay attention to my age. And for years, he kept saying that I was still 17, but whatever, he's passed now.
Yeah.
But he was like a father figure to me, but they showed me how a healthy couple could function. And they didn't always agree. Also, I learned about, hey, people can actually save money and they can actually take themselves on a vacation, and it can be, like, this is really cool, like a good amount of money, not some little few hundreds of dollars. And he talked about money freely. He was bilingual. He was actually a principal at a bilingual school in DC.
Okay.
And just powerful. And he did other things. He played soccer. She did exercise. She actually she was a dentist. She was a dental surgeon. She taught at Howard Dental School. So they just were that couple that you would look to, like, wow, this is really how you could do. And life was real for them. There were still issues going on. They had young children that I helped to take care of while I was there. So they became my sisters and my brother. But they were really good examples to me of a healthy couple. And I just, I think that that's really important. I don't think enough people get to see that. And I'm actually glad that my daughter has been able to see my husband and I and see that, a couple can stay together, know everything's not perfect, but, at the end of the day, everybody loves each other. And here we are 24 years later, right?
That's awesome. Yes. And though I had very stable and good parents at home, there was a couple like that helped me in college, that modeled those things for me. And it was just good to see it in another house besides.
Right. Because then you think it's abnormal, right? It's just you guys.
Right. Exactly. Would you talk to us about what you're doing now, about the weight loss program that you have, or just what's going on with Dr. Bramwell these days?
Oh my gosh, a lot. So I'm really turned up at this point. I am creating some online courses and creating an online course platform so that people will be able to do it yourself weight management, but with my guidance and subscription. I am I've been doing a lot of individual coaching, and now I've moved into doing groups because the groups are really, really powerful. It's a way to create community right away and immediate support. So I'm doing bigger groups, like between 7 to 10, and then I'm also growing my groups of like 3 to 4 with more personal attention and what have you, and probably a few like concierge individual. So I'm doing that, and then growing my speaking, getting out there speaking. So this is good that I'm here. I've always thought about that. I've actually had a dream some years ago about being on Oprah, and then I was so upset because Oprah's show, she stopped her show, and then she got another chance. I still have a chance. So I'm doing that, and then I do, that I with my weight management, I always incorporate supplements. I'm a big believer in network marketing because I think it's a way to create residual passive income. So I believe in that industry. I've been in it for a while, but really been serious maybe over the last 7 years. And so I'm very vigilant about finding products that I think can support people. They don't do the work, but they help in giving you what you need so that your body can do the rest. And again, helping people feel better. Once they feel better, then they'll do better. So I'm doing that and integrating that. So definitely growing that business as well, along with the weight management. So all of that together.